Hey everybody, today I want to show a demo of how to create a competitive snapshot for marketing, how to use AI to do that really quickly, and in the process really dig into examples of how to craft a really strong prompt and provide really good context for the LLM so that you get the best possible output. I've created a fictional company called Sunrise Ridge Yoga. They are based in Asheville, North Carolina, one of my favorite cities and places to visit. And then what we'll be demonstrating, as I mentioned, really want to dig into prompting and show an example of how a really simple prompt will create more generic output, something that might be helpful but probably not too much, and then contrast that with a more strategic approach, a much better constructed prompt, um, and how that can create much better output that's more strategic and things that you could probably actually use right away. Um, Really digging into this concept of quality and how prompting matters so much. And then in this process, I think illustrating why this is becoming such an essential skill in marketing. It's really becoming a non-negotiable, and I think this will provide some context of why that's the case. So first, I'll walk through the bad version, quote unquote, of a prompt, and this is really like what you would think of probably as your first instinct when you're working with something like ChatGPT and you want this type of competitive analysis. It would be really tempting if you're the owner of this yoga studio just to type in, give me a competitive analysis and some content ideas for a yoga studio in Asheville. Um, that's what most people would default to, but that's going to give us really generic recommendations that really anyone could get. It's going to give us unstructured output that may be difficult to use, not really differentiated in any way, it may not be really actionable or feel like a real strategy. And so the output from the bad prompt, we're really not going to get any competitor names, just vague references to other studios in the area with no specific intelligence. No recognition of our brand voice, so the output could sound like it's for any business in any location. No strategic opportunities, so it's going to miss any of the gaps or positioning insights that could help us drive competitive advantage. Really, no real insights, just surface level suggestions is all we're going to get back from that. The good version, so setting that up, this is what prompt engineering looks like in practice. It's just clarity and its structure. And so the first thing we're going to do is define the role that we want the LLM to take. We're going to say act as a competitive intelligence analyst. We'll provide the business brief, so the real context about the business, the audience, the positioning. We're going to name specific competitors in Asheville that we want to compare to. We're going to structure the task, so we're going to give it really clear deliverables so it knows exactly the job that it needs to do. And then we're going to set some constraints, like use only the information I give you, which will hopefully prevent speculation or hallucination. So the business context, this is what we're going to share in our strategic version of the prompt, the location and the audience, the brand differentiators, the brand tone, the current marketing. That's the brief. And then we're also going to give it a context block about competitors. So we're going to name three specific competitors. We're going to provide some information about them, their distinct positioning strategies. One is more fitness first, one is community first, one is convenience first, and their different approaches. And then we're going to provide a structured task list so we know the model knows exactly the job that it needs to do. There's no ambiguity here. We're going to ask it for positioning and brand tone. We're going to ask it for a comparison table, side-by-side analysis. We're going to ask it to identify strategic opportunities for us. We're going to ask for weekly content themes. And then we're even going to ask it for example posts that we could use. So we're going to get something that's exactly what we want and hopefully immediately actionable. So this is the structure. We're just going to provide all that into this prompt structure, and I'll go through that just in a minute so you can see the simple generic version and then the more strategic, thoughtful version. And then again, like the output, we're going to see this in a live example, but generic prompt, we're going to get really no specific insights, something that could be applied to any business. It's not really going to be actionable, not going to be strategic. Versus the engineering prompt output, we're going to get strategic clarity with those specific competitors that we named. We're going to get a comparison table. We're going to get actionable content themes that are ready to go. Um, and this is going to really sound like something we get back from a content lead or maybe a junior strategist, and something that's hopefully immediately useful. All right, so now jumping into the demo, I'm going to walk through these two examples, the more generic prompt example, and then the more strategic, structured, well thought out, designed prompt. And we'll see the difference in the output we get. So for the simple example, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to say, give me a competitive analysis and content ideas for yoga studio in Asheville. Um, just something very short and generic, and we'll see what we get back. And so here we can see the result that ChatGPT has come back with. There's a lot of content here, um, but it's all pretty generic to any yoga studio in Asheville. They've given us a competitive landscape. They have positioning, um, but this is not exactly who we're positioning for, so it doesn't know the context of our specific studio. So it's given us positioning advice, but it's just not very specific or helpful for our yoga studio. It's given us content themes, and again, these are all like pretty good ideas, but they're just very generic. So now we can try giving it a much better prompt, and we can see the difference. Just copy and paste this in. So here's the prompt that is just going to provide so much more rich information and context. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's got a few different content blocks. It starts with giving it the role that we want it to take. So here we're asking it to act as a competitive intelligence and content strategy analyst. And then we've got the business context. So for Sunrise Ridge Yoga, we're giving it a lot of information about the location, the business, the target audience, the differentiators that we have, the brand tone, current events that we're running, the marketing that we're doing. A lot of good context there. Then the third block that we've got is around competitors. So we're giving it 3 different competitors and a lot of information about those specific companies. And then finally, the last block is the task. So we're giving it very specific instructions on exactly what we want in terms of deliverables. We want 2 to 3 sentences of current positioning. We want a simple table comparing our yoga studio with the 3 competitors. We want 3 to 5 strategic opportunities for us to differentiate. And then we want 3 weekly content themes. So we can let this run and then see the difference in the result we get. All right, and here's the output. And as you can see, it's exactly what we've asked for in terms of deliverables. So we've got 2 to 3 sentences on our positioning and our brand tone. Looks just right for Sunrise Ridge Yoga. We have our comparison table. Again, giving us exactly what we want in terms of understanding how we compare with the other 3 studios that we mentioned in the prompt. It's given us 3 strategic opportunities, or actually 5 strategic opportunities. And these all look spot on for what we gave it in terms of our specifics. And then we have really good content theme suggestions that are right in line with our brand and all the information that we've provided. And it's exactly the deliverable. So it's actually less content in the output than the first example, but it's exactly what we need and it's much more actionable. And again, it's just going to be so much more specific rather than general and so much more helpful for our business. So that's it for the demo. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend.